Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good morning to everyone. Today me and my friends will be discussing the challenges that international students are facing during their studies overseas. So the 4 points that we identify as the challenges that they are facing are financial difficulties, cultural difference, feeling homesick, and also language barrier. So without further ado, I would like to invite Nur Alia to discuss his point on feeling homesick.
The potential challenge that students may encounter when studying abroad is feeling homesick. It is easy to begin feeling homesick when everything around you is so unfamiliar. You never thought that you would say it, but actually you miss your annoying yet loving siblings, miss your mom's cooking, and miss the things that you find comfort in. Even if you were not aware of this previously, but now you will find out. It is normal to feel homesick, but never let it become your biggest problem. This challenge is likely to be felt most especially for the first few months of studying abroad. And after that, do not worry too much because everything will be okay.
So one of the challenges that international students are facing during their studies overseas are language barriers. So what is language barrier? Is actually language barrier is a barrier between people who are unable to speak a common language. So in this premise, the international students are able to speak the languages that the countries that they are studying commonly use. So let's say if they are studying in German, they cannot use they can't speak German or Dutch. Why do we call this as a challenge? Is because of 3 reasons. The first one is the possibilities of having monolingualism or only able to speak only one language. So the second one will be low self-esteem, and the third one will be lack of desire to speak with people overseas. So my first point is there are numbers of people that are only able to speak only one language. Let's, for instance, the people at the people at Japan can only speak their own language. They do not prioritize English as their second language at all. That's why when people are studying in Japan, they have to learn. Whether they like it or not, they have to study Japan in order to understand the knowledge that they are studying there. So the second will be low self-esteem. This is caused because of a few possibilities. One of it is being an introvert, even though usually an introvert will be someone who is actually very smart. So the second one will be low soft skills. So what does it mean by low soft skill? Is unable to speak, to be open to speak to new people, to experience new surroundings around them, which enable them to speak with other people out there. So the last point would be lack of desire to speak to the people at the foreign country. This is because they feel like they are smarter than the people at the country, which means they like to isolate themselves from having any contact with the people there, which is actually irrational because the people out there are actually more mature and smart from us. People at foreign language that the international students are studying have first class mindset in contrary with us for having third class mindset, which means that it is actually a proof that actually the people at foreign language are more smarter and mature than us in terms of thinking and also in generating their ideas. So it is actually wise for them to share their thoughts and ideas with the people at there. So the effects of language barrier, one of it is unable to understand or to properly understand the lessons that are taught there, as well as may cause them to fail in their exams that can lead to the forfeit of their scholarships. So for my point, in my opinion, I think language barrier will not be shouldn't be one of the challenges that the international students are facing during their studies, because Because if someone doesn't understand the language of another person who is talking to him, he can still determine from their emotions and also their body language to determine whether or not the persona that they are taking when they are speaking is either a foe or friend. Which means is language barrier will not exist if someone is being open. So that is why I think that language barrier should not be a challenge to international students. Instead, language barrier is actually an excuse that they are using because of their unable to improve at the foreign languages that they are studying. So one of the evidence that I found is in 2012, Rosetta Foundation, they declared 19th of April as no language barrier. Why they are the reason behind this is to raise awareness towards people that languages should not be barriers should not be barriers to communicate with people. Instead, language should be proud to have. So that's one of my opinions about language barrier being the challenges that international students are facing during their studies in the foreign country. With that, I thank you.
Financial pressure is another big problem international students have to face, especially those who do not get any financial aids and have to pay their tuition and living expenses all by themselves. Fee international students have to pay to the universities is pretty high compared to local students. According to universitymalaysia.net, a Malaysian student who wants to major in art and business has to spend an average amount of $22,000 for the tuition fees and $13,000 for the living costs per year to study in USA private institutions. Meanwhile, studying in Malaysia, private institutions only cost around $4,600 for the tuition and around $4,000 for the living costs per year. Moreover, as many international students coming from developing countries, the exchange rate between US dollars and their domestic currencies could be high. A small amount of money to an American can be significant to an international student, which also means that international students have to cost a big fortune for study in the US if they do not have any financial aid. Then you would probably say, why don't they find a part-time job when studying? In fact, unlike US citizens, international students with F1 visas are with limited work permit on campus and no more than 20 hours per week. The jobs available on campus, some are only available to students of Federal Work-Study Program, which lead to even fewer job opportunities for the foreigner students. Restrictions on international students really leave them with few viable options. Earning money while at school is difficult for international students.
Now I'll be talking about the cultural differences international students face when studying abroad. When you're studying abroad, it's hard not to notice the differences in everybody's lifestyle, their daily routine, attitude, and culture. In our normal environment, the way we speak with our tone of voice, our behavior, our gestures, or the way we present ourselves rely on collectively understood cultural cues. However, we don't pay attention to these cultural cues as we do them every single day of every single second. They're our unspoken norm per se. Although in a new country, we become more aware of these cultural differences or subtleties as they are different from our norm. Now I can vouch for this. When I first traveled to Japan, and one of the few things that my mom told me was, one of the few things that my mom told me and my siblings were, wake up early, we can't afford to be late. The Japanese take punctuality very, very seriously. When a train says that it departs at 8:30, you better be sure you're on that train at 8:29. A minute late and the train will be gone. While this may seem like a burden for those who are not used to it, it actually is a good practice to discipline ourselves to be more punctual. Now let's get down to actual strategies and tips dealing with these cultural differences when you're studying abroad. One of them is to talk with other students about how you feel, people who are in the same boat as you, people who are in the same shoes as you, to talk to them about the culture in the country you're living in. And
You can ask them about how they coped with the cultural differences, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two. They might have figured out some things that you're still confused about, and you can find solace in each other, especially when you're away with friends and family. Okay. In conclusion, studying abroad isn't all weekend getaways and late night parties. It's a challenge, an introduction to a new culture, and an emotional roller coaster at times. You feel homesick, there may be a language barrier, some financial problems, the culture shock, and probably a whole lot more. But these things are inevitable. You're bound to face some difficulties. However, if you do ever get a chance to study abroad, I say it's one worth taking.